Bum 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 bum. The Peter Shit Show. Bum 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 bum. So one of my resolutions for 2023, as you guys saw late last year, was that I want to continue making bismuth art, making a name out of myself, and accumulating a lot more bismuth, right? My goal is 6 tons of bismuth. But then it occurred to me that if I had just avoided this one activity until this point in my life, I could have had about 10 tons of bismuth. I'll let you pause the video to think about what activity that is. I'm talking about dating, obviously. And unfortunately, in our society, we can't get very far if we avoid dating, right? A lot of times people will judge us, and I hope that that's another one of my resolutions is to educate the world around me to avoid that pitfall, right? I'll talk about some of my bad dating experiences here. Obviously, when I was working on my PhD at Rochester Institute of Technology, uh, I got pressured into staying with a girl who was taking advantage of me financially. And but that wasn't the biggest loss, actually, in terms of all the dates that I've ever been on, because it was short. And I part of the reason I stayed with her as long as I did was because I didn't see any way out, right? There would be something upcoming in the next week, and oh my God, how am I going to go to this movie without her? Oh my God, Valentine's Day is next week. Oh my God, I have to give a presentation on my PhD defense. They want friends and family to come there. Who am I going to invite there? And that was a big drag for me. Had I not had those pressures, I probably, in a free world, I probably would have broken up with her long, long ago, right? And unfortunately, we live far from a free world, or we live in a world full of judgment, prejudice, persecution, and actually, the reason I broke up with her is kind of interesting how it transpired. We had broken up over her wanting me to help her again with something silly. She was starving, and her family needed my help to put food on the table or something like that. And I looked at I went to the grocery store with her. And I looked at the food she was about to buy, and I'm a very healthy eater. When I looked, and she was buying Doritos and all sorts of nonsense, and I looked, gee, this isn't food. And I snapped out of it and I walked out on her. And I think that's why we broke up. Now, I went home and I realized, oh my God, this Sunday there's a coin show and I have nobody to go to that coin show with. And I once again went into a panic. And I was like, what do I do? I froze up. And somehow between then and Sunday, I didn't think much of it until Sunday came around and I almost didn't want to go to that coin show. But it was a really sunny day. It was, if you want to look it up, it was June 13, 2010. It's a really sunny day, and I thought, gee, I kind of want to just ride my bicycle to that coin show. My car was broken down. I hadn't even fixed my car because I uh, I was spending all my money on her. My car was broken down, and I rode my bicycle to the coin show, and I had the best time of my life. And I swore off dating. Unfortunately, the swearing off didn't last all that long. Soon enough, I was working at my first job, and I had a girlfriend in Rochester, New York, and I went back to see her quite a few times. I took a job in Seattle, Washington, and I continued to fly home. And then I met a girl through a former classmate of mine, and she lived in Poland, and I went to visit her as well. So you can see a lot of trips, a lot of spending, a lot of not to mention all the money I spent trying to meet girls locally, right? All that just to conform to society. And when I totaled it up, it was about 10 tons worth of bismuth, and unfortunately, all that in the name of fitting in, right? In a free society, I would have never gone on a date, right? I would have when I was a kid, I had a big problem with uh, getting accepted for who I was in high school and college, because, in large part, because I never had anybody to go to an event with, and then I would try to meet somebody, And I really didn't discover that I was happily single until I was 23 years old when I went to that coin show. I sometimes refer When I was 13 years old, I had a big problem because my friends were going to prom, and I really wanted to join in. I just didn't have somebody to join in with. So the time between when I was 13 and when I was 23 years old, when I went on that first solo sexual date, I sometimes call that my lost decade of romance, where I didn't know where I was in terms of romantic life. I had My romantic partner was right there all along, and I didn't notice him, unfortunately. Anyways, and then I spent another decade continuing to be lost because of prejudices and all that. So I'm on my third lost decade as it is right now. Not as bad as that first one, but just like Japan, a lost decade has become more like a lost century now because of all the lack of acceptance around me, right? And I continue to have to pay this hefty tax. Not as heavily. My taxes have been cut a lot. I gotta admit that, but I'm still being taxed year after year after year after year because of how we don't see eye to eye on this, right? Hopefully, I'll change that over the next. I'll start educating people. This is the Peter Shit Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Shit Show. Bum 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 bum.